Shut up and sit down.
And welcome to the 2024 edition of the BlackSwarm podcast. Tank Pipe here with Rob Antonell. And just like our last episode last season, where we actually got to recap it in joyous celebration, this year we're starting off a little different in that we don't have to talk about anything last season because we got that all covered. So with that, let's just kind of get right into it. A lot of changes this offseason on the offensive side of the ball. Coach Mazer and Coach Trox are no longer with us. I think they took at least Mazer put out, and I'm assuming Trox did the same thing, taking a step back. Kids are getting a little bit older, want to be more involved with them. So we have a new offensive coordinator, and with that, a whole new offense this year with Coach Alex Wood. Defensive side of the ball, all the coaching staff, it's all the same faces. Coach Lino running that operation, but 8 new starters on that side going to be. So with that, let's just dive right in. This being the BlackSwarm podcast, we'll just kind of start off on the defensive side of the ball. So we only have 3 returning starters from last season. Large Michael, Hackenbrack, and Vito McConnell. So with that, what's a good way to say this? We've seen the defense turn over at least 3 times since McConnell and now with Lino kind of continuing that same system have been here, and it's been dominant every year. Now, last year was an all-world defense. I think I can confidently say the best high school defense I've ever seen personally in my life. So to expect that again, I think would be asking a little much, but I still expect to see a dominant BlackSwarm on that side of the ball. Rob, what do you heard anything? What are you expecting from our defense?
Yeah, I haven't been hearing too much about the defense. It seems like same old every year. Reload, keep it going. We did lose a lot of guys from last year, and that was a historic defense, but I still expect us to have a really strong defense this year. I'm hearing good things. Defense is looking good. Like you said, we had the same system in place, same coaches in place for a long time. Luckily in the defensive side of the ball, you're able to rotate guys a little bit more, so they have a little bit more experience, even when you have to bring in people that haven't started before. But with the system we have in place and the fact that they've been learning it for the last 4, 5, 6 years, probably, down to the middle school level, it's an easier transition to bring in some of these guys. And with the same coaches in place, I don't expect us to drop off very much. Now, I by no means are we going to be what we were last year, right? I just don't think that's possible. If for some reason it happens, play the lottery. But you can't expect that to ever happen again. It was that good of a defense. But I think they're going to be just fine on the defensive side of the ball. I know it's the BlackSwarm podcast. It's the one that we want to talk about the most. But sometimes defense isn't flashy. It just gets the job done. Completely shutting down offenses is what they do, and they do a great job of it every single year. So I would expect nothing less this year.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think what's going to be really noticeable is not having Pringle in the middle of that defense, shoring it up. At any point, I think he stepped on the field. He was the best football player overall. You have guys that are like real smart, high football IQ. You have guys that are just phenomenal athletes. He was that rare combination of both, and we asked him to do a lot in our defense, and he did it all at a level that I don't know if we're going to see it again anytime soon because he was that special. He's off to Bowling Green. Good luck to him. You can catch him, on some Tuesday night action. I assume he's going to be seeing the field here sooner than later just because of what kind of an absolute stud he is. Mm-hmm. Corners, I've heard good things. We always seem to have athletes out there with our system. We can either ask them to do a lot or we can, not ask that much of them other than go out there and be dudes. So we'll see what we got with that. But with, McConnell at outside linebacker with Big Mike shoring up the middle and Hack back there roaming the defensive backfield as a safety. We do have experience coming back at all three levels, and with the amount of blowouts we had last year, we'll have guys that were rotation players last year seeing the field a lot more, being starters that have had that experience. They're not going to go out there and be starstruck or lost, not knowing what to do, having never started before. We're going to have experience, but to a lesser extent coming back. My last note on the defense, and I caught Travis McGuire at the store the other day, and I got in his ear about this too, so maybe we can see it come to fruition. But I am on my knees begging and pleading to get a bad snaps caused by Big Mike counter on that scoreboard. He is an absolute menace up the middle, and more than a few of those bad snaps were caused because that center was shitting his pants.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that I was the one that came up with that last year. Tweeted it out during a game, I think after like 2 or 3 bad snaps. I should contact Dave Wagner that runs the scoreboard, the visual side of the scoreboard, and see if that's something they can. I'm sure if somebody kept track, he could get it up there, but I'm sure there's a few authorization processes of actually doing that. But it's insane how hard he makes the life on opposing centers. They want nothing to do with him. The last thing they're thinking about is having a good snap when they have to pick him up immediately after that. So, this is going to be a dominant year for him going into his senior year. A lot of experience, a lot of talent. I think a chip on his shoulder. I'm surprised that he didn't get more offers than he has so far. I know that he did commit to a school, but it just always surprised me that he didn't have more offers than what he has when he's been the most dominant defensive lineman we've seen on the field for the last 2 years straight, and now going into his senior year. I don't know what his exact measurables are, but it's plenty enough that, he could get into a bigger school. Some of these bigger schools are completely missing out for sure.
Oh, yeah. And I think it's because, he's a little bit undersized for your...
He's a little bit undersized, but,
And that's really all a lot of these recruiters are going to look at is he's not built like your prototypical nose tackle. You want some beef there. And not to say he's small by any stretch of the imagination, but when you compare him to, I'm not going to say like Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama guys, but like, that next step down, the Penn States, the Clemsons, the USCs, I think they're really missing out because they just see, oh, this guy's a little bit undersized, but you watch his film and he's an absolute just game-wrecking dude. He's got the get off, he's got the burst, and he's got that strength that when he hits you, it's like, from half a yard out, he's like that Bruce Lee 1-inch punch of a nose guard where he's just absolutely clobbering you coming off the ball.
Yeah, there's schools even a level down from that, a couple levels down from that haven't been offering him, and it's just crazy to me. You're telling me a Ohio U, Kent, Akron, these MAC schools can't use Big Mike? I mean, come on.
I don't know. Maybe it's just they're not even... it's just more respect for the guys more disrespect for the guys up front, the big nasties that, never really get the glory, but he's a game changer. And like you said, just any MAC school, he could probably walk on the field and be starting in a year or two, if not sooner.
Yeah, we're not talking about a big body that fills up his gap well, and, you never notice it on film. This is a guy that disrupts plays every single drive. He's in the backfield. The penetration, it's what you want. You want an interior defensive lineman that can get that quick get-off penetration. I mean, you're afraid he's going to get bullied. I mean, we haven't seen it, right?
Nope.
I don't know. I think it's insane. It reminds me of, Mike Hall, who maybe not a great example since he's in trouble right now, but, undersized at Ohio State, but that quick get-off, has the strength to still deal with the larger offensive linemen. He had a few injuries at Ohio State, but, just that same thing. You're a little bit undersized. But this is a guy that just made it to the NFL, and he was looking really good against NFL talent until he got in trouble. But, that's Ohio State. You're telling me that, Akron, Kent, Toledo, these are just local MAC schools. How many similar schools like that across the country could use somebody like that? I don't know. Whatever. Rant over when he ends the year with 20 tackles for loss as a nose tackle. He'll have the last laugh.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can really think of is kind of the meta in college defenses right now. It's like is the 3-4 tight front, where really all you need out of your nose guard, not all you need, the main thing you need is that big-bodied space eater, because you're just trying to clog gaps up in the middle with three guys, because those smaller schools really aren't getting a lot of bodies to begin with. So he's kind of the antithesis of what that system calls for, of where Big Mike, he's, like you said, he's a gap shooter. He's going to be in the backfield immediately, and where a lot of these defensive coaches that want to run, their system rather than fit their system around their guys, they're just looking for a guy that's going to be able to clog up both A-gaps and not really ask him to do much more than that. So that's the only thing I could really think of. But, like you said, it's wild to both of us that he's not getting these looks, offers, really anything from all of the local MAC schools, of which there is an abundance of in Ohio, that nobody's even throwing him out an offer that we both think he deserves. So we'll put a.
Well, I mean, this is part of the reason. Hold on, is this year's? Yeah. Okay. So, where is it? Mike Wright Sr. Okay, Mike Wright Sr. So they got that part wrong already. He's listed at 5'11", 185 on MassillonTigers.com.
Is there a different Mike Wright on the team?
Yeah, his dad is, I guess. Can't believe he's not getting more offers now. All right, no, I mean the coaches know who he is, obviously, right? Yeah. But so Mike Wright Jr. If it's supposed to be 285, I was trying to see what Adam listed at. I mean, 5'11", 285. If you told me he was a little bit smaller than that, I would believe you. Mm-hmm. But I figured if he was anywhere in that 270, 280 range with his get off,
yeah,
he's a great nose tackle for us. But you're telling me a team can't put him in a 3? You can't move him around. You can't stun him. Whatever. He's committed. I hope that the school that he's committed to is the one that he's really happy with, and it's going to be a great fit for him. I'm just disrespected for him that there aren't more offers on the table.
Yeah, and those top end athletes, a lot of them like playing with that chip on their shoulder. So he might. What school is he committed to?
I believe Youngstown State.
That's right.
But I haven't said that because I wasn't 100% sure. But that's what I think it was.
That sounds right. You said it confidently enough that I believe that. So hopefully he can go out there and dominate, and maybe go, the Caden Woolard route, who went to what was it, Miami, yeah, Ohio, nice. Dominated, was the sack leader in the MAC last year, I believe, and has transferred to Oklahoma. So now he's getting to go play with the big dogs, go show out there. Hopefully for Big Mike, he could kind of go that same career route and, really put on a show and prove a lot of these guys that they were wrong, and make a lot of these local schools look like some idiots.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with going to Youngstown State or, whichever school it was he chose to go to. It's just the amount of offers. I expected more,
Yeah.
I mean, Ward has a great opportunity to go off to Oklahoma, but he could have stayed at Miami if he really loved it there. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with going to these schools. There's nothing wrong with committing to a school now rather than waiting after your senior year. I wouldn't be surprised if a few more offers rolled in, and I feel like there should have been a lot more already. But I think we've mentioned that quite a bit.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because no disrespect to anybody going to any of these schools, we just think that Mike Wright has the talent level that is well beyond that he can play and probably dominate at higher levels. So it's not disparaging to these smaller schools. It's looking at these bigger schools like, what are you doing? You can use this. This is not just a contributor. This is a game wrecker.
Yep.
So I think that's a pretty good cap in that conversation. Moving on to the offensive side of the ball, we have, most of our talent coming back. I don't think we really graduated too many guys, except, the best athlete on the offensive side at any given point. So with the departure of DeJuan and no other quarterbacks seeming to try and take the reins, we have, number 2, Jalen Slaughter coming back, filling in, stepping back into his starting role very confidently. It was not that he lost it last year. It was a rotation system-wise, and then he got hurt, and then it just kind of was what it was. So he is back taking the reins of the offense. We have most of our running backs back. We have, I think, most of our receivers back. A lot of age, experience, and skill at all of our skill positions. Up front, we have, I think, 2 full-time returning offensive linemen, and then a third guy coming back that got a lot of rotational time in since we had a lot of injuries on the offensive line last year, but we had a stupid amount of depth. And I think that was another big part of why last year was so special, because you don't normally get that kind of depth to be able to, roll out 7, 8 guys that you're confident with on the offensive line. So this year, we'll see who's going to step up to replace some of the guys that left. But the biggest story is the new offense we have with Coach Alex Wood. Not a not unfamiliar face in Massillon. I think he graduated in 74, 73 from Massillon. He was on the offensive staff last year. He was our OC back in 2009 and has coached at every level of football. Been around a bunch of D1 colleges, been in the NFL with a couple teams. So it's going to look a little bit different offensively than it was last year, really the last few years. So, Rob, you were a sophomore when he was the OC, so you were on varsity when he was there. Now, I know it's been 15 years, so it's probably a little bit different, give or take. Day one install back then was I formation, and now it's 3-4 receivers spreading the ball out, shotgun all the time. But, from your experience in that offense, what can you kind of give us on, a bird's eye view of it? Was there a lot going on? Did he, just your experience, your impressions of it at the time, not so much from, I guess, specific play calls and formations, but more just how it compared to, the other offenses you played in.
Yeah, so that was my first year moving up. It's everyone's first year. So freshman year we ran pretty much the exact same stuff we ran in 7th and 8th grade. Maybe a little bit different, but it seemed like it was the same system we were kind of going up in. So then once you make that next jump, you get to the sophomore level, the sophomore, junior, seniors, JV, varsity, all running the same thing essentially. So it was his first year there. I don't necessarily remember exactly what the different changes were. The one thing that I do remember is how we ran the play calls. That's when we used the wristbands, was with Coach Wood. Mm-hmm. Now as the OC, I'm guessing that he had, final say over all of that. And then, Jason Hall was probably part of it as well. But I don't know why we did the wristbands, if that was a thing that he had always done, if that was him saying that he didn't think the kids could learn the offense quick enough. But we did the wristbands, and it didn't tell you the play call. It told you what route to run. So every position had a different wristband. And, if we told you, if you look over and they tell you play 50, you look on your wristband, play 50 would say run a curl, 12-yard curl. What was nice about it is that it was super simple. You could insert anybody as long as they kind of knew where to line up. They didn't have to memorize the plays. Really easy. What's bad about it is that everything was so static and robotic that you had no clue what the guy next to you was doing. So there was no using a concept against a defense. There was no finding the soft zone. You just ran out there, you ran your curl. You didn't know if you were the first read, if you were the second read, if you were a decoy, if you were supposed to create space for somebody else. None of that ever came across. Now, I'll admit that we never really learned that the other years either. My junior and senior year, they never really taught us those things. But if you were smart enough to learn the play multiple positions, you could at least kind of understand what was going on. Now, they're not doing that now, but that's what I remember from back then. I remember we did all the receivers worked off of a wristband that told them what route to run, not the play. And I remember the linemen, they had some kind of system where they were calling out all of their blocks at the line. They were communicating with each other. Ace, deuce, they were calling it out at the line, which that was something that was new to me. We had never done that before then.
Really?
Yeah, I mean,
That's
not at least not to that extent. I mean, not that I played the line, but I remember, 7th, 8th, 9th grade, it wasn't really that big of a thing.
I mean,
10th grade it seemed like a brand new concept. All the linemen were like doing calls and checks with each other. And it was like a brand new thing, at least that I had noticed. Doesn't mean they weren't doing it before, but I think there was a new spin on it at least.
Okay. I was going to say, because at least my entire time coming up, going through, like, that was a standard thing basically across the board. It didn't matter what kind of system you were in. You were making calls with your linemen, so you were all on the same page of, that ace, that deuce, that tray, this, that, or the other, back calls, all this. Your offensive line, at least in my entire career, we were always communicating with each other, so that doesn't seem like it was a thing exclusive to him, at least.
It may not have been. I think it was emphasized that year because, I don't remember that junior or senior year, at least not to that extent. It seemed like it was a really big, coordinated effort that year. So I don't know. Maybe it was just my first time noticing it, but I don't remember that really happening junior, senior year. So, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But, I know that there was some simplicities at the time, but then also some things that were easier. I know when Coach Wood came in, he had some kind of pass blocking scheme that I heard the other coaches talking about at the time, and they're like, "Oh, this is great! Like, it's easy doing it this way. It's amazing. It's foolproof." I think since then, there's a lot of defenses have caught on to that, but he obviously has a lot of experience, and I think there's a lot of potential. He has helped out the last 2 years. I think 2 years ago more than last year, but it's not like it's bringing in some new random guy. He's very familiar with our coaching staff, with the team, with what systems we've been running. He is running his system now, but I think it's an easier transition than what it would be just bringing in some random guy.
Yeah. So kind of going back and looking at his last stint, I rewatched the 2009 McKinley game, the playoff one in Infocision Stadium, just to kind of get a feel for it, of what he'd like to do, just a bird's eye view. And the couple things I noticed was big zone running guy. There was only 2 plays where guard pulled, and I think one of those plays either somebody messed up or it was like a false key because he was on the backside, pulled away from the play. So either he messed up or we were trying to get real fancy with throwing the defense off their keys. A lot of I formation, but that, like I said, that was more in vogue. Back then, that was your day one install. That's kind of what your base offense was. With the passing game, a lot of, we weren't really that formationally diverse. It was, I saw basic spread 2x2, 3x1, and then 2x1 with split backfield, 2 running backs back there. But what I did notice was a couple of things. Number one was he wasn't afraid to call the same play twice in a row if it worked the first time. So that's something, I think a lot of OCs tend to outsmart themselves with, of you'll try and call a different play than the one before just to keep the defense guessing, but it's a lot of times you'll see guys that, they just fall back on the, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I like that about him. Another one was, even though the formation looked the same, so basic 2x2 set, I know we ran a tunnel screen against McKinley with the number 1, catching the football, coming in underneath, and it was just an Olak. Then later on a big third down, it was that same 2x2 with the outside guys just running clear out goes and the inside guys running basically get to the sticks, curl, pivot out, and hit the slot guy running the pivot, and it was just an Olak. So even though the formation looked the same, he was moving guys around within it to get his best players in a position to make the play.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, a little bit of unbalanced stuff, mostly out of the I formation, and then one kind of, I don't want to say gimmicky, but, not much to it, where you have the 2 receivers on the line to the one side, your one guy off the line to the other, and he's running like a jet sweep. And then the play off of that is like quarterback counter going opposite the jet sweep. But it didn't seem like there was too awfully much going on, like concept-wise, but with what we did, I think he used it very well. And I mean, it got us to the Final Four that year, so it had something going for him. Another thing that kind of stuck out to me was not a lot of motion. It was very static formations, kind of, you line up in this, and this is what it's going to look like when the ball's snapped. Now, with that, I don't know if that's a him thing or if that was a quarterback thing, because we've talked about before, offenses kind of bird's eye view. You see a lot of guys nowadays that like to say more motion is good, get the defense guessing, but a lot of quarterbacks will tell you that they kind of like that. They like that static picture. They like to see what the defense is in and then just go from there. You got Joe Burrow, Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning kind of fall into that regard. So I don't know if just the staticness of the offense was more for the quarterback or more for Alex Wood, but that was just my impressions of it at the time. Now the last thing is, man, was it jarring to see we lined up in the I formation and ran lead draw. And that's a play I haven't seen in like a decade and a half. Just quarterback doing his 5-step drop from under center, handing off to the running back up the middle. It's like, man, offense has come a long way in 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really good team that we had that year. Went to the Final Four, ended up losing to Glenville, who had Cardell Jones at the time. I think they had like 20 kids go D1 that year. Just an insanely talented team. And that was D1 at the time. So I think something else that's worth pointing out, depending on how much film you looked at, is that I remember our offense kind of shifting a little bit throughout the year, because to start the year, Brandon Pedro, who is our inline tight end, he was hurt for, I think, the beginning of the year. So we did a lot more 3-wide set, or 4-wide even. So you have Jakar Roberson was our slot, a real shifty, good slot receiver. About halfway through the year, Jakar got hurt, and Brandon Pedro came back. So we brought in an inline tight end, and we lost our F. Back then, it was called an F. I don't, call it whatever you want now. We lost our slot receiver and brought in an inline tight end. So I think that is part of the reason why our offense may have shifted formationally. But we had a really strong offensive line, and then you had Devin Smith and you had Justin Olek. So, you can use that talent. I think Alex Winters, as a sophomore, ran for like 1,500 yards that year. Jake Ryman went over 1,000 yards as the second running back. Just a really strong team. Rob Partridge was a good quarterback with a strong arm, and he could run quite a bit. He was really fast, but I don't remember him. We didn't run him as much as you'd probably think about running a quarterback which is that size and that fast. But just really talented team, and I don't know if we needed to do much more than what we did that year offensively, systematically at least.
Yeah, we had some big nasties up front that year. My one question was, Bo Grunder, was he like a running back or more of a slot receiver, or kind of both?
He was, from my memory, he was just a receiver. And with that, he didn't play much receiver, or at least not as much as he could have. He was Defensive Player of the Year in Ohio that year. I think he had 115 tackles and 8 interceptions or something like that. Remark, the other safety, he also had 120 some tackles. Spencer Leno had 135 tackles that year, something like that. The defense also strong that year. A lot of, I didn't mean to do that, but all 3 of those guys that have coached for us, 2 of them currently coach for us. Grunder was a good receiver. He knew how to get open, and then phenomenal athlete. He never got the credit for being the athlete that he was. If he was a little bit bigger, he was going to a D1 school. He didn't play a whole lot of receiver for us. I think they filled him in, when they wanted to. But they kind of saved him for defense.
Yeah, I asked that because we had one play against McKinley where we lined up in a spread trip set, and he was lined up in the backfield, and it was a pretty basic play, just like get him out on a swing pass and get the guys, the receivers blocking for him in space. It didn't work out on that particular.
Was it the first McKinley game?
Second playoffs.
Second one. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Alex Winters got hurt that year by McKinley. So our running back room wasn't as deep. Jake Ryman, very serviceable running. He was a good running back also, but he also got hurt. I think he ended up playing through the playoffs, but he got hurt. Seth Nullback could play some running back for us, but he was a full-time defensive guy. Yeah. So I'm guessing they probably put Grunder back there just kind of as a little specialty. Let's try to get him the ball in space. I don't think he repped running back very much at all.
That's why I asked, because it looked like all the running back snaps were going to Ryman, and then Nullback got a little bit, but just that lining up, getting your guy that can be a dude with the ball in his hand. For a little more contemporary comparison, I think he's a lot like a Austin Brawley type of, just a dude on defense, flying around everywhere, and if you're playing him on offense, you just want to force feed him the ball in some way. But it was seeing that of we're getting a little creative with where we're lining our guys up and just finding ways to force feed our dudes the ball. And that's another thing, you look for with, even though offense has changed in the last 15 years, we're not really lining up in I formation, 65% of the time anymore. It's still that conceptually of how are we going to get our dudes the ball, this, that, or the other, that you like to see.
Yeah, and having the talent that we did that year kind of made it easy on him. But I do remember that, kind of being a thing, right? How do we, obviously getting Devin Smith the ball is, you just throw it up for grabs. But, there was times where we would call it to let's try to get Devin the ball. We ended up losing the game at Steubenville. But we get down to the 1 or 2 yard line. We try to throw a jump ball to Devin. It ends up getting intercepted. Really changes the game. But, that's one of those plays where it's I think my guy's better than your guy.
Yep.
We had a great offensive line. Maulers. And you're on the 2 yard line. If you go for it and you get stuffed back to back to back to back, the fans aren't really going to be that upset. Not that you should be playing for the fans, but that's the safe route. But he said, hey, I think we can use this guy. Let's get him the ball. Let's give him a chance. He's the best player on the field. And, I don't think he was ever, shying away from that. We did run a bunch of screens. We kept running those same screens for years, but we implemented those pretty late in the off season because they let the quarterback Partridge, they let him name the play. So he had a really good relationship with the quarterback. They worked together really well. They discussed which plays they wanted to add to the playbook. They got to pick out the names for the plays they're adding. But a lot of good memories from that year. But trying to say how that translates to a different team, a different year, 15 years later against different defenses. I don't know if it's exactly apples to apples.
Yeah, but you can look at the stuff and it's obviously it's not going to be the exact same plays, but like you said, with that, having that good relationship with the quarterback and taking in, what they're saying, getting their opinion on stuff. What do you want to run here? What are you comfortable with running? That kind of thing and is good. You don't want to go out there and be, for the other extreme, like the old wing T coaches, like the Keith Wakefield. Just, I have my system. We are running my system. My players be damned. It's you.
Yeah.
You have what you like as a coach, but you want to know what the kids are comfortable with, what they like, what they want to run, and then letting them name the plays keeps them engaged. It keeps them a little more into it than if it's just like, okay, this is the play, this is what we're calling it. Go out there and do what I tell you to do.
Yeah, I mean, you have to adapt your system to the players you have, and I wouldn't expect that to ever change. And the coaching staff that we have around the entire offense, the one thing that I can say is I think we have a lot of talent. We're a well-rounded group of athletes. It's not as simple as we have Devin Smith. Let's throw it deep to him every time. Justin Olak is just the most premier possession receiver in Ohio. Let's run some routes for him. When you have 4 or 5 guys that you can utilize, that's when you can kind of run the offense you want. But at the end of the day, you still always have a couple play calls for, I think my guy's better than your guy.
Yep. So with that, I didn't get to catch either scrimmage, but, did hear some reports out of it. Read the stuff on MassillonTigers.com, looked a little bit on Facebook, even though that's just melts my brain every time. I don't know why I keep doing it, but I do. And then hearing, some friends of ours that actually did get to go and see him in person a little bit. It looks like under center is back, baby, even though it's not base offense anymore. We did line up in the I formation a little bit, so it just goes back to our conversation, at the end of last season about looks like you can still run a little bit of under center. So don't know about you, but I'm going to pat myself on the back for that one. But run game, it's a lot more zone running. There was a lot of outside zone, which, that's a play we've had in the playbook, and we've ran it in years past. But it's a play that, if it's going to be the cornerstone of your offense, it is very different than anything else you can run as an offensive lineman. With inside zone or power, you're building a lot of double teams, down blocks, climbing up the linebackers. You're pulling for traps or kick outs or wrapping around for a linebacker. But the technique required to run outside zone is just so different than anything else you can do, where you're essentially racing the defensive lineman to the sideline, trying to grab their shoulders, hook them around, and throw your body out in front of that. Heard a lot of stuff in the Avon game, scrimmage of, we didn't look that good. It's a lot of run throughs, that kind of thing. And that's the other thing with zone runs is you don't have an assigned, I'm not going to this guy. I'm not pulling for him. I'm not blocking him. It's all based on where the defense lines up, and you're blocking a zone. That's why it's called a zone run. So that's just something. It's going to take a lot more reps. You just got to keep doing it to get comfortable with it. So, that's one of those things that we couldn't get the run game going. Might be worrisome, but it's Avon. Are they trying to win the scrimmage, or are they trying to go out there and evaluate talent? We're going out there and evaluating what we got and running stuff that we want to work on. They're going out there bringing 8 guys every play and trying to win the scrimmage. So,
yeah, it's worth noting that Avon brought back 20 starters on a team that barely lost to Hovind last year.
Yeah, that'll also play into it a little bit. But yeah, and it's in scrimmages, how much are you even game planning for stuff as well?
Yeah.
Or are you just you're going out there? It's practice, and it's just the only difference is it's practice against the guys you haven't been practicing against for the last however many weeks. It's a good way to break up the monotony of it. You go out there and you hit the same guy in the face 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days in a row. You just get tired of it. You start getting fed up with stuff. You start wanting to fight people. That's when you see little scuffles start up, and getting out there and getting a different look and seeing different guys across from you. It's good. And honestly, I would want to see us in those kind of things. You want to see where the failure points are. It's you're not trying to go out there and look pristine in a scrimmage. You're trying to go out there and run what you're a little bit iffy on and see how it plays against guys that haven't seen the same thing for the last however many weeks of practice. So it's good that we go out there and you find stuff you need to work on, and then you can tweak it from there. If it's stuff that you really believe in and you want to run, then you keep running it and you get better at it. If it's stuff that you're like, I'm not really that sure about it, then you scrap it and find something else.
Yeah, I mean, between implementing a new blocking system and having a couple injuries up front, it's going to be tough sledding there through the preseason. But I would expect them to get in line, sooner than later. But there's going to be some hiccups. I think that's to be expected. But it's not about how you start the year; it's about how you finish. So as long as we're on track to be at our best when we need the best, then that's the path you need to be on.
Yep, I've always been a big proponent of, don't worry about how the team looks until after week 3. Really, that's like, I think it takes a few weeks of live fire, live reps to really figure out who you are, what you're good at, what you're not good at, and then lean into it. If you come out in the first preseason scrimmage of the year and you don't look great, whatever. If we come out and it's, we're going into week 4 and we're averaging like 6 points and look like Iowa's offense, that's when you can hit the panic button. Not that I think that's going to happen. I'm just saying, like, all the panic I'm seeing of like, oh, we don't look that great. Let's take it easy. We haven't even played a real rep yet, and just go from there. So, with that, I guess the only other real notes I have on that is looks like we're going to have a lot more actual real inline tight ends this year. A bit of a, with his higher level college and NFL experience, I think that's a thing that Alex Wood likes to run, is having that inline tight end, playing a little bit of the wing as well, and then our fullback lined up like super in the backfield. No more of that sniffer position lined up like a yard off in the B gap. So it's going to be a little bit different, but we'll see how the kids adapt to it, see how the offense adapts to the kids, and go from there. Mm-hmm. So with that, I think we can take a look, just kind of run through the entire schedule this year, any games that jump out to you, and just kind of get a vibe of what we're feeling for this year. So obviously, we open up with the NFL Academy London out in Oregon, Nike's facility, this Thursday at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. Then we have an away game with Glen Oak. Our home opener, week 3, haven't had that since, I think, 2013, 2014, against Bergen Catholic, New Jersey. Followed up by another home game against a familiar out-of-state opponent, Canisius. Then heading on up to Lakewood St. Ed's. First time playing away up in their home field for a while. Then we have DeMatha Catholic, Maryland. Followed by Football North, a Canadian team that plays exclusively American football. They travel all over our country and play, American football, none of that Canadian, everybody motioning, running at the line, pre-snap, 3-down bullshit. Week 8, still to be determined. I believe that was the Miami team that probably realized they didn't have shit going for them this year, so they pulled out. An away game at Warren, and then, of course, Canton McKinley at home this year. So we're not going to do the win-loss thing. I think, the biggest thing that jumps out is how little Ohio teams and local teams want to actually play us. But any games immediately jump out to you? Anything you want to touch on?
Well, I mean, I want to touch on the fact that Glen Oak continues to play us every single year. Big shout out to them. I'm afraid that might end up going away once their current administration retires. But, they're a team that plays us every single year, and I think it's worth noting that they do, because they haven't been able to touch us in a while. But they still play us every single year. So shout out to them, because, no one else on the Fed will play us. Warren, another team that we've been playing for quite a while now. Shepis is their new athletic director. So I'm guessing that will probably stay in place for a while, at least hopefully. I like playing Warren. They always have, some good athletes, some good teams. It seems like every couple of years they're able to put together a really strong challenge, and hopefully they're on the right path to where they can be one of those perennial contenders again. A pretty strong team year in, year out, rather than having these dips and dives that they've had lately. It kind of just like a shout out to the two Ohio teams that'll play us. But I mean, looking forward, I'm obviously looking forward to this week, going out to Oregon and playing this team from. Technically, the academy's in London, but they have players from all over Europe. They have a player from Japan, a player from Hong Kong. So it'll just be an exciting experience to see, what the NFL affiliate is able to put together. We'll break that down a little bit here after this. But, I mean, outside of that, Canisius, we've seen them a few times, and I know that they like coming here. They're always grateful for the opportunity and our facilities. Their fans really enjoy it. I think DeMatha is a game that I'm looking forward to, but hopefully we can find something for Week 8. Football North, they came down, was it last year, and had a
scrimmage type deal, or was that 2 years ago?
Weren't they in? They played somebody over at Benson. Was that part of the Classic last year? Did they play was that Perry or something?
I could not tell you.
Well, they came down and they played somebody recently, and they're a quality team. So it's not one of those Canadian teams where they come down and it's just a JV game. Not to say that we might not end up running away with it, but they actually are a pretty quality team. Mm-hmm. So I wish there was more local teams on there that we could talk about and we can get into interactions with other people, but that's just not how the schedule shakes out to be. I've been seeing a lot of things online about how bad it is that we're not playing more local teams, but more local teams don't want to play us. That's the way it is. So it's unfortunate. And then it's also not being in a league, which I'm not saying I want to be in a league, but you have to realize a lot of teams are in leagues, so their weeks 5 through 10 are filled. They can't play us the second half of the year. So, it's tough to schedule. We've seen that for quite a long time, but it's something that we got to overcome. And I look at it as we're fortunate to play some of these tough teams from out of state. We're able to host some good quality teams and show them our facilities, and these are people that come in and they respect us. They respect everything that we get to give to them. And, I feel like that's more appreciative than, like a Barberton that wants to play us 1 year and then quit because how much they didn't like it. So.
Yeah, I think you pretty much covered it. The only other thing that's really sticking out to me is playing St. Ed's away this year. We talked about it a little bit before the Eds game last year of, them making us stink a little bit of, we always have to go down there and play them at their house. And I think we brought it up before of, we thought that, Lombardo, he liked the opportunity to come down here and play in a hostile environment and see how his team handled it. But I was talking to my dad about it not too long ago, and he brought up a good point too of, I think they wanted to have their cake and eat it too, of they loved coming down here and beating our ass in our house. And they got to do that. I don't want to say they stole one from us, but they kind of stole one from us in 20, and then in 21 came down, and unfortunately Trell got hurt and went off the rails a little bit. And then 22 and 23, I think in 22 they could kind of lie to themselves a little bit, like, oh, it came down to the last play of the game and we missed 5 field goals. And then last year it was, we put the ball in the ground. We put the ball in the ground, 5-6 times, and we still beat their ass pretty handily. So I think, they don't. He's kind of seeing the writing on the wall of we're no longer, not guaranteed, but a pretty good chance at a W for St. Ed's. So I think he wants a chance to kind of get the odds a little bit more in his favor and bring us up there and play us in their house. And I think we're going to look at that as an opportunity to, hey, can we go to this hostile environment of 2,000 seats and play them?
Yeah, I remember talking about it last year, that the comments came out before the game that Lombardo was upset about having to play at Massillon consistently. And at the time, I kind of defended him because I was like, I doubt that he meant for that to get released. It didn't seem like it was a public statement. He never seemed like the type of guy that would be saying those type of things leading up to a game. But then I think he doubled down after the game was over too, and that's kind of a tough look. You're the defending D1 state champs. You're a nationally ranked team. They ultimately won the state championship again. It seemed kind of petty to complain about us not wanting to play up there. If it's true that we didn't want to play up there, but this year we are. So, we have the chance to really stick it to them and go beat them up there. I forget where it's being played. It's I don't know if it changed in the last week or if it was always planned to be where they currently have it. Because one of those stadiums just had a lot of damage.
Is it not on their normal home field?
They don't have a normal. They have 2 different places. Like a lot of the times when we would play them in at Byers Field.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess I was thinking that was their home stadium.
I mean, yeah.
It's kind of like them and Iggy kind of share that one, right? Or am I just?
Yeah, but then they play at Lakewood also.
Gotcha.
And I forget exactly where we're playing. But there was a lot of people that were worried that it wasn't going to happen because the stadium had so much damage. But now I don't remember if it was Lakewood that had a lot of damage or if it was Byers that had a lot of damage. But we're playing at the opposite one. So was it always planned that way, or did they have to switch it because of the damage? I don't remember. But either way, we're playing not at home against Eds, and we have a chance to go beat them not at home, which is what they've been complaining about. So, it's up to them to bring a hostile environment. I don't know how many fans St. Ed's is able to bring. I mean, I'm sure they have a decent alumni section and booster club, but it's not like a town tradition like you would, for Massillon or, any other, if a Warren is really good, Warren's going to have a good crowd at home.
Mm-hmm.
When McKinley's good, even when they're not. But I doubt it's going to be. I bet going to Barberton was probably more hostile than what it would be going up to Ed.
Well, that's what you get with those private schools, man. So with that, I really don't have anything on the overall schedule. It's going to be a little bit different, all these out-of-state teams, but like you said, these local teams refuse to play us, and last half of the season, they're all in leagues. It's tough to, so I'll give them a little bit of credit on that, but I don't think they're really, they're really getting themselves in knots over not being able to play us, so it is what it is. Now we can go ahead and take a look at this Thursday's opponent, NFL Academy London, right after I take a quick potty break. All right, so NFL Academy London started up a few years back. NFL trying to grow the game a little bit. I think it's a cool idea. You get these guys that otherwise wouldn't be exposed to the, American football like we are here, blessed in the States, but made up of, supposedly dudes from all over Europe, and like you said, got a guy from Japan and wherever else. Hong Kong, I think, is another one I saw. But right now they have, a couple pretty decent, my phone decided we're just not doing this right now. There we go. Okay. So, a few decent teams on the schedule. They just played Edgewater, Florida. Mm-hmm. They have us, then De La Salle, and then IMG Academy. I caught a little bit of the IMG game that they played last year on YouTube, and my first impression of it was like, man, IMG does not look like the powerhouse that I thought they would be. Like, not even just on-field performance, but just like the dudes suited up. And then looked into it, and turns out IMG thought so highly of them that they sent out their JV squad to play them. So I think they won that game. NFL Academy did, like 31-17 or something like that, but didn't necessarily look all that impressive or overpowering for playing a JV squad. Now, it is IMG, so, those JV players are probably starting at most any school in the country, but it is what it is. With Edgewater, who they just lost to in apparently a shootout, which is surprising considering shooting's illegal in Europe. 51-45.
It's illegal here also.
It's making no guns in Europe. We have guns here. Obviously, shooting people is illegal here, dummy. Didn't think that's how you'd take that one. But, okay, so they lost 51-45. Apparently, defense is illegal in Europe. Is that a better joke there, Rob?
Well, we've always known that.
Fair enough. All right. So with that,
we are their defense, I thought.
That is true. So with that, let's kind of get into their roster a little bit, starting on the offensive side of the ball.
You're asking me to do that?
Yeah, it's always been your job.
I know, but you already got it.
This is the one thing you consistently do.
All right, so as always, when I'm doing this, we'll start with the offensive line.
Attaboy.
They have pretty good size across the board: 6'5", 275, 6'4", 265, 6'2", 270, 6'3", 280, 6'7", 315. So by all means, a pretty large offensive line for a high school football team. Smallest guy is 6'2", 270. That's their center. Coincidentally, he's also the weakest part of their line. In general, I think it might be easier, but let's run through the whole lineup, and then we talk about how they are as a team, how they are as a roster, rather than by position group.
Yep.
So a large offensive line. Their quarterback is 6 foot, 180. By all means, a pretty decent quarterback. Traditional style quarterback. It's not going to be much different than what you would see from someone here. They are playing American football, but this guy is a quarterback. Their best player is the running back, 5'7", 190. He's number 0. He's from Germany. They look to get him the ball a lot. In their receiving group, they have some height and length: 6'3", 180, 6 foot, 175, 6'4", 215, 6'3", 180, and then another player that's 6'1", 200. Tight ends and fullbacks, decent size. Pretty much a static thing with them is they have the numbers on paper: 6'4", 215, 6'5", 225. So across the board, they have some height, they have some size. Line is large, and their most explosive player is the running back. So, on paper, seems like a pretty competent, put together, strong offense.
Yeah. Just kind of in general, they like to use the inline tight ends, a little bit of a spread, like 3 receiver, 4 receiver sets. It's more of like a handful of concepts they like to run, and then they'll just formation the hell out of you. We're going to run the same handful of concepts, but we're going to do it from so many different looks, keep you guessing on who's doing what. They like to use a lot of motion, but like you said, their best player, number 0, they'll move him around a lot, try and get him the ball, and which way they can. They're a big play offense. They like to live on that stuff. So I think if we can limit the explosives and, make them try and march down the field, give them those 8, 10, 12 play drives, I don't know if they can do that consistently or not. Now getting back on what's been my beat for the last year, this is a literal who's who of names. And,
my goodness.
It's definitely because they're all foreign, non-American, but pick out who you want. You got, let's see here, the right guard, Samu Soiminen. Obviously, he's Finnish, so I don't even know if those letters are pronounced that way. Justus Seelig from Germany, number 0, their best player. Very traditionally German name there. Number 82 from Germany. I don't know if he's like an American transplant or what, but Peter Martin sounds just exceptionally English. But then, you're changing it up with Matthew Okanade. That's how I'm going to choose to mispronounce that one. And then a couple, Luca Wolf, great name, nice and strong. And Vili Haapasalo. Yes, there's 2 A's, and I am choosing to pronounce both of them.
Well, now that we got that out there, everybody's aware of their names.
They're cool names. All right, you don't get this kind of all-star lineup of names. All right, usually we're playing a bunch of Ben Johnsons and Ryan Smiths.
Yep, you're right.
You are wholly unentertained with this, aren't you?
This is not the best name team that we've had in the last year. But yeah, I started watching some of their game from last week against Edgewater, and Edgewater's a good team. So where am I at right now? I watched basically the first quarter. I feel like that's all I really needed to watch, just to kind of get an idea of the team. I'm not going to sit here and learn their concepts, their plays, or anything like that, but just kind of get a feel for the team. They're not amazing. It's some good talent with some good size. You can tell that, worth noting that all of their coaches are NFL guys, former NFL coaches or NFL players. So, they're being taught very well. They like to shift in motion a lot. They'll do some where they shift 2 or 3 times in the same play. And they might end up not doing a very fancy play, like you said, but they're going to try to move people around, which is kind of ironic to how their defense works, but we'll get to that later. Number 0, the running back's their best player. The receivers don't look amazing. Quarterback looks okay. I don't think that their running back is as explosive or as fast as the scouting report says. I saw him break off a long run, and he has a really short stride. At 5'7", he's not going to have a real long stride, but he doesn't look like he's really that straight line fast. But the offensive line, they're large, but I'm wondering if they can be beaten. I know that the center is kind of the weak part of the line. He has a tendency of having bad snaps, slow snaps. So
Mike Wright.
Yeah, having Big Mike lined up over top of him is going to be an interesting watch. Mm-hmm. But I think just that aspect of it, the timing, they work out a shotgun exclusively. It's going to be interesting. But I think as long as we don't let them out-align us by shifting, we should be pretty steady on the defensive side of the ball. And I think we have even a bigger advantage on the offensive side of the ball. But we can get to that when we're done discussing the offense from NFL Academy.
Now, do you think they look slower because they use the metric system and you're used to watching it in Imperial?
Yeah, I think it was the field they were playing on was yards. Could have been meters.
Got it.
But I was comparing him to what the other players looked like also. Edgewater's a good team. I think I saw that they're ranked 57th in the country, at least by somebody's poll. I'm surprised that Edgewater gave up that many points. because watching the beginning of the game, it looks like Edgewater is clearly the better team. They did give up that one big run, but they really shouldn't have. And I'm guessing how that's the rest of the game went also is one guy misses his assignment and the running back can break it. Because the first long run, it was one where running back just kind of bounced it out. There was no contain, and he just took off. It wasn't that it was necessarily blocked up perfect. They were opening a hole for him. So, I mean, I guess we'll see what happens. But, yeah, I mean, it could be metric. That could be what's throwing me off.
Yeah, that's it. So, with that, do we want to move on to the defensive side of the ball, or do we have anything else?
Sure, we can move on over.
Cool.
So defensive line, this one's where it's probably a little bit more important to talk about individual position groups. Defensive line, 6'3", 215, 6'4", 245, 6'1", 280, 6'3", 230. Decent-sized defensive line, but that's also the strong suit of their defense. Linebackers, 6'1", 200, 6'2", 225, 6 foot, 205. Decent-sized linebackers. They're all kind of rangy, lengthy guys. They don't have, just an absolute bruiser back there, but plenty adequate size. Safeties, 6 foot, 175, 5'11", 180. Corners, 5'10", 175, 6'1", 170. So these are all numbers that you'd expect to see on, any local decent-sized high school. Around here. You can compare this to many different teams. There's nothing that jumps off the page here. But the defensive line is the strong suit. Linebackers, not the greatest part of their defense. And then their secondary, they don't run the best system, I would say. But maybe you can talk about their system a little bit more.
Okay. So what I watched last year, they're basically, kind of a base 4-2-5 cover 4. I guess this year they run more of a cover 3 and play pretty static in that on first and second down, and then like to get after you with the blitz on third down. Conceptually very similar to like a St. Ed's, where they're going to run their stuff. They're going to keep it nice and simple on those early downs. Let their guys, that if you're just playing the same as a defensive player, if you're just running the same play over and over again, you can get really good at that and just focus more on, reading your keys and what the offense is doing rather than thinking about what you have to do. And then in third down, that's where they tend to get a little more complicated. They'll blitz you. They'll get after you. So you just got to stay out of those third and long situations, keep on schedule. But, yeah, their defensive line, they like to stay in that 4 down. It's a double-edged sword of where they're going to be, how they're going to line up, so what your job is going to be, what your assignments are, how you need to block them up pre-snap. It's just, can you execute that post-snap? And like we said, their defensive line is kind of the strong suit of their defense. It's the heart of it. And with the zone running stuff, it's going to be a lot more, can you match up with these guys up front? I'm sure we're going to have some gap stuff in the offenses too. You're not going to go exclusively one way or another. So, can we bully these guys off the ball? Can we get those double teams up to the linebackers? Can we get those reach blocks? If not, you might start to have to go to more power, counter, trap, that kind of thing where you're working. It's a little bit easier with the angles and whatnot. And then with the coverages, you want to throw the ball. I'm sure our quarterbacks have a pretty good idea how cover 3 works. They, who you're going to be reading on certain plays, how they're going to react, or how they at least should react. And like I said, keeping them out of those funky looks on those third and longs. I mean, it's easy to say stay on schedule all game, but there's going to be some plays where it doesn't happen. You're going to get behind the chains. It's just how football goes. And then how are we going to deal with that when the time comes? We saw what was it, in 22 against St. Ed's, where we have like a 3rd and 10 and we're walking out there in 21 personnel, tight end, fullback, running back, but it's to keep that defense out of those funky looks because they have to be worried about if we just decide to run it. And if you're bringing a weird-looking blitz, then those gaps to run the ball are going to open up pretty well. When you're working on those third down blitz looks, you're not necessarily worried about how you're going to fit up the run. You're trying to get to the quarterback. And so it'll be interesting to see in those, if they get us in those situations, the chess match of what we're going to do. Are we going to just line up and run our stuff, 3-4 wide and try and throw the rock? Are we going to stay heavier, keep them in a vanilla look? Or are we going to use that aggression against them and have a couple screens or trick plays up our sleeve? I don't know. I'm interested to see that.
Yeah, I mean, watching the first quarter of their game from last week, it was interesting to see their defense lines up, and how they line up is how they're staying, right? Mm-hmm. So there was times where Edgewater, the one play, this is the one that really sold it for me. Edgewater brings a slot guy across, and then they bring a fullback across, and not a single person on the entire defense moves an inch.
Good Lord.
Yeah, and I'm like, if you're going to let us realign two people, and then they pull a guard. So consistently the defense did not move. Mm. And then Edgewater had a lot of success with pull blocks. It seemed like they were consistently just getting out and up to whoever they needed to block. It was easy peasy for them. Mm-hmm. Their one linebacker for NFL Academy, I don't think that he scrapes very well. He doesn't really get himself in position. I was watching him the one play. I think it was Edgewater's first touchdown, and the guard pulls and the fullback kind of lined up like the sniffer, how we had him pull us also. Mm-hmm. And the linebacker, who's I guess backside, but he's the one staring right at the left guard and fullback, completely lost of where the play's going. Never gets over. Play side blacker gets blown up, and the guy goes for 50 yards. I think that one linebacker is a little passive. I don't think he gets to the spot very quickly or aggressively. Mm-hmm. So, I think if we were specifically designing our game plan to try to win this one game and it was all or nothing, we would probably be shifting and motioning all day long and trying to play with leverage. We'd be pulling people across, because it seemed like that is where the NFL Academy got hurt quite a bit, at least in the first quarter, but I have a hard time imagining they adjusted much. Edgewater ended up putting up 50-some points in this game. So, if they're able to shift their defense based on alignment in 1 week from last week to this week, I mean, good for them, but I don't think that's going to happen. So I would expect us to try to line up with leverage and, just beat them that way. But I guess we'll see, because we also want to be able to run our base stuff and continue to get that practice going. But I think you can definitely run on this team. I don't think I've even seen Edgewater really attempt very many passes. I mean, I've only watched one quarter so far, but that's all I really needed to do to get a vibe check. That's all I'm going for is vibe checks here. And the vibe check is the defense is static and unresponsive to what the offense is doing. It's a very reaction. We're not going to get ourselves lined up to the best of our abilities to start with. We're going to try to make up for it afterwards. And I don't know if they have the talent to make up for being out of position.
Got it. Now, the one thing I will give them, so with 4-2-5 cover 3, is your defense is technically balanced. Your front might change if you have a 1 tech and a 3 tech, and the offense flips strengths. Then obviously and you don't shift the interior defensive line, then obviously the offense is basically going from blocking an under to an over front. But the rest of the defense, I mean, you have your corner, your safety, or you have your corner, your apex player inside of him, be it an outside linebacker or the roll down safety, and inside linebacker, and then your free safety is always going to be to one side, and then obviously the other side is going to be the exact same. So it's, if you have a change of strength motion like that, I might want to see my guys maybe take at least 1 or 2 steps, kind of get to where they want to be a little more comfortable at, but that's not necessarily something like with a cover 4 out of that same personnel group where you have your Sam, your outside linebacker, and then they motion a guy across, and then suddenly that guy doesn't have a Sam in his face anymore. He has just a corner and a safety, and nobody else. Where something like that, 2 high shells, you might need a little bit more adjustment to it. With that cover 3, I don't think you need to. The defense needs to realign themselves as much, so that might be a reason why they went to that rather than the cover 4.
Yeah, I mean, there were times where the secondary was communicating. I don't want to say they were confused, but it was, there are times where the safety was just trying to decide, like, oh, should I be the one that goes over there? Should you be the one that goes over there? And, they worked it out. So, they're probably pretty interchangeable. Mm-hmm. But there were a few times where they were like talking it out. You could see that they were trying to figure out which way they should line up. Especially Edgewater went with this unbalanced bunch set at one point. They were going to run looks like they were running like a little wide receiver screen out of it. Mm-hmm. But the defensive backs were trying to like discussing how they wanted to line up with that. But yeah, it just, anytime that a defense doesn't move, it just kind of puts up a red flag for me. I feel like if you bring 2 offensive players over to one edge of the line and you keep your line and linebackers where they were to start with, I feel like you're going to get reached. And I mean, I don't know. That's not my game. I don't do the offensive line blocking stuff, but Edgewater was having their way in the running game. And plenty of times when they were pulling, they were able to get up on the backers and push people and make holes. So the defensive line is a strong part of their line of the whole defense. But it's more to it than just them. The linebackers have to be able to fill and play gaps as well. So I just felt like they were kind of getting outpositioned at the beginning of the game here.
Mm-hmm. I mean, hey, we'll see. We'll see what happens if they want to adjust. If they're just gonna be statues until the ball's snapped. Obviously, something to easily take advantage of. They have NFL guys on their side of the ball. We have NFL guys on our side of the ball.
Yeah. It's so weird to me because the offense does so many different shifts. Mm-hmm. And, what's the point of them doing those shifts? Is it just eye candy? Is it trying to get the defense to move out of position a little bit? And then the defense is like, yeah, we don't care. Move around as much as you want. We're not doing anything. And it's like, it's the same team, but then like a complete polar opposite, concept.
Yeah, I mean, if that's how they want to play, that's their philosophy on that side of the ball. You have plenty of NFL guys still to this day that are running drop spot cover 3 without too much complication to it. And if that's kind of the coaching tree of who they have at the NFL Academy, then more power to them. But with that, defense, it's a lot more reactionary. It's a lot. You're not just doing your job. You're doing your job based on what the offense is doing. And these are guys that, maybe not necessarily have grown up playing or watching American football their lives. So you want to try and keep it as simple as possible, where it's, offense, you can move around. Generally speaking, the offense is the one dictating it while the defense is reacting. So they might be trying to keep it as simple as possible for those guys that, haven't had football in their blood their entire lives and maybe have to think a little bit more as they're playing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, right? The easier, more simple you can make things, it allows your players to play faster, and the faster they can play, the better they can play. So you don't want to make them have to stop and think about everything, but you also got to make sure that they're in position to succeed. I'm just kind of letting it play here on my other screen, so I might have some more comments as I see them, but I figured I should get more than a 2-drive sample size of them if we're gonna keep talking about it like that.
Yeah, I mean, you might need more than 2 drives for a vibe check in a game that ended 51-45. I think the biggest thing when I was watching them versus JVMG was they ran like a jet sweep play action, and IMG was bringing like a slot blitz right into the jet fake, and this blitzer, I don't know if he knew the jet guy didn't have the ball or if he just wanted to lay the wood on somebody, but he hit the kid running the jet so hard, I think it knocked him like back to Switzerland or whatever, because he didn't fall on his ass. He just like stopped, got hit, and then it's like one of those old toys where it's like a figure that has a button on the bottom and it's got like string through it keeping it tense, and you hit the button and it just kind of like flops over a little bit. Like that's what the kid did. He just I watched his soul leave his body without him actually leaving his feet. So
yeah,
these guys, they travel all over. They play different European teams. They play plenty of American teams. Don't know how hard they're going to get hit or how hard they've been hit, but I know how hard we're going to hit them on Thursday, and I don't know if they're prepared for that shit.
Some of these guys don't look like they've been hit real hard before in their lives. But here, Edgewater, 2nd and 12 from their own 4-yard line, just ran a direct snap to the running back where the quarterback faked that went it over his head.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like a weird play call, backed up on your own 4 on 2nd and 12. They only got 1 yard out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But that kind of caught me off guard.
I mean, I guess if you don't have the I formation in your playbook, that would seem like prime fullback dive territory to create a little bit of space for you on 3rd down. So if you don't have that in the old utility belt, maybe the direct snap, try and catch them off guard a little bit, might be what you're going for, especially backed up like that. Defense might be expecting a little bit more pass. But the way you're shaking your head right now, you're not liking what you're seeing, huh?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Third and 9. Now they're on the 6-yard line. 2x2.
Mm-hmm.
Edgewater's got the ball. So 2x2 left hash. They are basically running a switch 4 verts. To the field, the safety just sprints to the flats at the beginning of the play.
Okay. Is this the roll down safety like cover 3 type, or are we looking at a too high shell?
It starts off looking like too high, but he ends up working his way down to 6 yards, 7 yards. But at the snap, he beelines it to the flats right as 1 and 2 both run right past him.
Oh, boy.
So now he's just covering the flats, and there's no one in the flats. I mean, he's on the line of scrimmage almost.
Mm-hmm.
On 3rd and 9. They actually completed the post in the boundary. The free safety wasn't able to get there. And it wasn't, I guess it is a post kind of, switch verts. And except for he ran it very directly to where he was going. It wasn't it was kind of like a bender. And the free safety's just late. Quarterback throws a good ball. Mind you, the number 1 that's now running up the seam to the field, would have been a touchdown because the free safety wasn't going to get there. But, yeah, it was just something about that safety just beelining it to the flats on 3rd and 9 while both receivers sprint past them.
Hey, my job's to cover the flats. I'm going to cover the flats.
Yeah, I remember middle school.
Listen, man, when you're working with those,
I remember watching Perry film from last year.
Oh man, listen, when we were working with guys that 16-year-olds that never really played American football, drink wine at lunch, and don't know what processed food tastes like, sometimes you got to keep it simple. All right, they don't have the luxury of working with these corn-fed boys.
Yeah, I mean they're a decent team, right? They're not some just complete pushover. They are able to put up over 40 points against a top 60 ranked team in the country. Mind you, I haven't watched enough to see how they possibly did that because their first drives didn't look like.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see.
I mean,
I'll report back after I watch more.
I mean, when you have NFL guys on your coaching staff, I'm sure they can figure out at least if you only have 5-10 plays at your disposal, but you can just formation the hell out of the opponent, you could probably figure out pretty quickly how to get leverage on high school defense.
Yeah, that's true. So I wanted to read this post that was on Facebook from a Massillon group. Rarely do I ever see information on Facebook that's worth repeating.
Mm-hmm.
But this guy usually puts out pretty good information. He does it every single week. And I find his information to be pretty useful. It's definitely knowledgeable enough that you can tell he knows what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that it's going to be 100%, but I figured I would read this whole thing and then see what your response to it is.
Okay.
It's not real long, but give me a sec. The NFL Academy was created in 2019. Their campus is in Loughborough University. The NFL created the academy as a method of developing talent and spreading the game of American football. There's like 80 players on the team from 15 different countries. They have over 1,000 kids try out for the academy every year, and they take the best 80, I guess. So a typical day at the NFL Academy, it's really similar to like what school is here, but they have a morning workout from 6 to 8 a.m. With weight training. They have breakfast, and then they have classroom from 9 to 2. They then have football practice from 2 to 5, which includes film and field training. So pretty similar to what a high school would be like here.
Mm-hmm.
The coach is Steve Hagan. He started there in 2013. He's been coaching since 1984. He had 2 stints in the NFL, once with the Browns under Butch Davis and once with the Jets under Buddy Ryan. He's coached at 12 different colleges, including Kent State, Notre Dame, North Carolina. Wow.
I haven't sneezed away from the microphone on that one.
No, you didn't.
Sorry, buddy.
He's 13-3 since he's taken over as the coach there, which I believe includes their loss last week.
Okay.
5 former NFL coaches, 6 American football college experience coaches. The academy runs a pro-style offense with multiple sets. They're mostly a one-back team, utilizing a tight end and a slot receiver for double teams and point-of-attack blocking. Is worth noticing that I did see them doing some motion crack blocks.
Mm-hmm.
And then one time they faked the crack block and had him run really just a release route across. But yeah, I don't see a whole lot of motion crack blocks anymore, but I did see them do that a couple times. The running game uses a lot of pulling and lead blocking schemes. Pass protection is big on big with the back releasing into a route. The receivers run all the routes. I think he means like the route tree.
Yeah.
The academy seems to prefer routes to its backs and slot receivers, usually with motion. They will be in shotgun 95% of the time. Defensively, the academy is a 4-3-4 look. They tend to take advantage of the size and athleticism. They will blitz, but it's minimal. Coverage is usually zone, but they did play a little man with 2 deep. As a team, they move well and tackle. The defensive back all can cover, but tend to get out of position. The linebackers play downhill. The real strength is their attitude and team hustle. Overall, the NFL Academy is a respectable football team with skilled athletes.
Well, the first thing that really sticks out to me is if you say your strength is your attitude and your hustling, that tells me it's not your skill, your size, or your strength. So
yeah. It's not coaching, it's not scheme, it's not skill, it's just their overall desire to be good.
Yeah. So that's the first red flag. I know he said it's a 4-3-4. I'd argue it's more of a 4-2-5. Really, you're playing semantics with, is your outside linebacker more of a cover guy, or can he come down onto the line and play in the box and stuff the run? If you're just drawing up the scheme on paper, it's basically the same guy. So it's, we're saying the same thing, just different ways. Another thing that stuck out to me is they like to get their backs out on the routes, and you're protecting with 5. So with that, in high school ball, you see the majority of teams keeping their running back in the protection because, number one, empty style pass protection. I think we talked about this either last year or the year before. It can get very complicated with dealing with how you're going to defend. You essentially have 6 gaps you need to defend with 5 guys if you don't have a running back in protection. So either they're running a very complicated pass pro, or they tend to keep it simple because they don't face many teams that can blitz that much of a complicated blitz scheme. Now, I have watched our defensive coordinator Lino blitz the ever-loving fuck out of any team that gave him the chance to. So if they don't want to keep their back in protection and get him out on the route, yes, it is more difficult to defend 5 eligibles than it is 4. But if we can get the quarterback off his spot quick and just keep him thinking he's going to have guys running after him all day, then it's going to be hard to work through your reads and find one open guy, much less any of the 5.
Yeah, and then I think if you pair that with some bad snaps or some slow snaps, puts a lot of pressure on your quarterback.
And we know Big Mike up front is going to be just having that center in the Thunderdome all day. So, yeah, they like to pull guards a little bit, get some crack blocks in. I think buck sweep is one of their big runs that with our 3 down front, I've seen a lot of teams attack us with that specific play fairly often. Valdosta, I think, hit a couple big runs with that against us last year. That and pairing it with some RPOs, which I think they have a little bit in their tool belt. But it's something that, schematically it might work against us. But do you have the horses to run it against us, especially when we know it's coming? It's one of those things, it's a weakness for our defense, but we know it's a weakness, so we know how to defend it. It's that I know what you know what I know kind of game going.
Yeah. I just had to fast forward quite a bit until they were finally on offense again.
Yeah.
First play, they went motion, like jet, sweep, QB read. The snap was high and slow, so I don't know. I mean, the quarterback ended up keeping it because I think he had to.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was going to be his read anyway, but...
Can you see how the center is gripping the ball?
I should be able to because 12 different times they've zoomed in from behind against Edgewater center, and I noticed that he holds it. He doesn't hold it weird. He just holds it right over his right foot. It's not in the middle of his stance. It's over his right foot.
That's interesting.
But I don't think they've zoomed in on NFL Academy center yet.
So when I say how he's holding the ball, I mean, if you can get a look at it, is he gripping it how you would throw it, or is he gripping it with the nose of it in the palm of his hand?
Yeah, I don't know. Let's see if I can tell right here. I mean, it's not a good angle, but maybe I can at least get an idea. No, the line's blocking it. Can't see anything.
So,
there we go. Yeah, he's holding it like you would throw it.
Okay, gotcha. I was gonna say,
and it's just a slow. It's a perfect spiral.
Yeah,
but it's a slow lollipop that if you were to not try to catch it, it would come down and hit the quarterback on the top of his head.
That is interesting. And if I were them,
perfect spiral. That's just a little rainbow.
So I was thinking maybe they're teaching him to dead ball snap it, where you put the nose of it in the palm of the hand and it just kind of floats back to him. And maybe that's what you meant by slower. But oh boy, what happened there?
They went empty, put number 0 out to the left, 4 receivers to the right. No, well, actually they kept the tight end in. They went double tight. Point is, he ends up rolling out right. The tight end just gets blown up. But the quarterback breaks a tackle in the backfield, breaks another tackle, and then right before he gets to the sideline, he throws it over his head, forwards out of bounds. I mean, kind of like a savvy play. He broke two tackles and was able to throw it away, but he had to throw it over his head backwards.
Oh boy, that's one of those plays you're watching in film with the kid, and you look at him like, "Hey, that's a hell of a play, kid. You got away with it there. Don't you ever do that again." Because, that's one of those 95% of the time only bad things are going to happen. But yeah, if the center's holding the ball and snapping it traditionally and it's lollipopping back like that, Big Mike is going to wreak some havoc on him because it's like any other throw, your velocity is going to come from how quickly you're snapping your arm back. And if he's lollipopping it back there, he's snapping it slow. And frankly, Big Mike might be laying the wood before the center even gets the ball out of his hands.
Yeah. Yeah, they decided to blow an opportunity here. Good play by the quarterback. But the tight end dropped it.
Oof.
They definitely moved their formations around quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like it's anything like funky, but it's like just a little bit different than you'd normally see.
Gotcha.
Oh my God. Yeah, they're doing some like crazy shifts.
Well, I mean, you can either run a bunch of stuff out of the same looks, or you can run a couple things out of 100 looks. So it's not like we haven't played a team in very recent memory that did that. It was
Oh, this is on 4th and 2. They tried that.
Oof.
Got it. Yes. Let me talk you through this one, I guess.
All right, let's hear it.
I gotta go back to the beginning of the play. The actual beginning of the play. Because there's like 4 different beginnings to their plays. They move around so much. All right, so they start off, zoom out. Zoom out. Okay, here we go. Empty.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of looks like an illegal formation. So empty 3-by-2.
Got it.
So they're about to shift. So they bring. So now they go. Okay. So now. Now it's 1-by-1.
All right.
Tight end on the right side in line.
Mm-hmm.
Fullback next to the quarterback right side.
Okay.
Running back behind the quarterback.
Straight pistol look.
Yeah.
Got it.
They bring the right receiver in motion. It looks like he's going to do one of those little crack blocks.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes behind the whole play. They fake.
What do you mean, like
to the right?
Behind the offense, like an end around?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but he comes in when they do their crack block. So this is something I've noticed, and I haven't noticed much of a tell yet.
Mm-hmm.
When they come in motion, they then get square right before they get to the line.
Yeah.
And then they would do their crack block. So even on this one, it's an end around. He motions in, gets himself square, starts chopping his feet, and then does his end around.
Okay.
So when they motion in, they always get themselves squared up to the line of scrimmage again before the snap. But he ends up coming around for an end around, and they hand it off to him, which I guess is the good call because the offensive line just lets 3 guys in, and number 0, I mean, I'm surprised he's still playing.
Yikes.
And, yeah, I mean, that receiver seems like a decent player, but he's not, like, he wasn't going to make anybody miss in the backfield, and that's how they got stopped on 4th down. But, yeah, they go from 3-by-2 into a 1-by-1 pistol.
Mm-hmm.
And then motion in and run an end around behind the. So I mean, they do some. I mean, they're going to move around.
Yeah. All right. It's funny you brought up the tell. When I was watching them last year, or their game from last year, I was about probably 85-90% right on calling when the guards were pulling. You can tell. They really show it in their stance of how heavy they are on their hand that's in the dirt. And if it's like their fingers just barely touching, scraping the ground, they're really sitting back in that stance. You can get a pretty good read on when those guys are pulling or not. And I didn't see any pass plays where they're using like a trap protection, so like pulling a guy and having him take on the play side end or something with a play action look. So if they want to try and run that buck sweep, reading your keys and looking at the guards is going to be more important than ever because they're going to tell you exactly when they're pulling.
Yeah. So what play is it if your play side tackle and center both pull?
Play side tackle and center?
Out. They pull outside.
Okay.
Yeah, so they brought a extended tight end in motion.
Yeah.
Crack blocks the end. Tackle pulls out. Center pulls out.
That would be pin and pull. It's kind of like people call it like another variation of outside zone. So instead of like trying to form double teams up front and seal off the linemen and then your more play side linemen climbing up to the next level and taking on a backer, you just down block the lineman and then pull the backside guy around. And it won't always be the tackle. It's very dependent on where your defensive linemen line up at. So it's if you got two guys and the defensive lineman is between you, then the guy that can get the down block leverage is going to down block. The backside guy is going to pull around and lead up through. It's you don't see it a lot at the high school level, so I'm not surprised that they're trying to run it because they have NFL guys. That's something it very en vogue in the NFL a few years back. So it's basically just outside zone stretch, but you're replacing a double team and climb with a down block and pull.
Gotcha. Man, they definitely do a lot of shifts. Just throw it up for grabs, interception. Yeah. They definitely like to do that crack block.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen a situation where they've crack blocked and it didn't go right there outside. It's every single time they've done it, that's exactly where it's going, which makes sense. But
yeah,
they have faked crack blocks though.
Well, that's the way to do it. Make your play actions look like the runs. So you said, does he fake crack and run like a drag or a crosser, or does he fake crack and get vertical?
He ran. He came across behind the line and released into the flats,
Gotcha.
Which it was a run play, and the other receivers were blocking. So I don't know if he was supposed to do that or if he was supposed to block.
That's a little bit more of a common RPO where it's basically like a shield flat.
It may have been. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Well, we've bellyached for quite a while over plays that, it could be this, it could be that, and then it turns out it's just a kid fucked up. So it is what it is. It's high school ball.
Yeah. They just scored again. Yeah, they're down 26-7 right now. 27-7. I wonder if Edgewater just put it. I wonder if there's a bunch of garbage time points.
Could be.
This NFL Academy offense doesn't look like they're making any movement. We got a minute left before half, and all they have is that one accidental big play. Oh, he just threw a Hail Mary to a guy wide open, and it's he mossed him. Wow. Safety got it should have been an interception.
Got it.
But he went up and mossed him, and there's a touchdown. But yeah, he just threw up a prayer. Mind you, the receiver got behind the safety somehow. Couldn't tell from the angle, but they haven't been able to sustain any form of offense in the first half.
Mm-hmm. Well, I haven't really known many teams to be able to sustain much offense against our defense, so it might be a long afternoon for these cats. And that's afternoon local time, evening Eastern Standard. So kind of.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that they're showing it at the stadium.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, they're going to show it on the scoreboard at the stadium, which I think is cool. You can still give the fans the opportunity to come together and watch the game and celebrate the scores together, rather than just sitting at home and watching it. Because in general, we don't really want to get that concept in people's minds of, you can just watch games from home. Don't worry about it. You don't have to show up.
I mean,
so I think
COVID kind of tested that, and we still have had plenty of crowds show out since then.
Last year was really good for attendance.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say years prior to that were low, but I was pleasantly surprised with how our crowds were last year. I think the Valdosta game was a good reason for people to show up in person, mm-hmm. and then they just kept coming after that. And the winning and everything obviously a great season, great team. But I think that Valdosta game really jump-started having a good crowd for the rest of the year. Because I don't know if I can say the same in 21, 22.
Well, you got to look at 21. It was like we kind of lost all like the rest of the guys that were responsible for that 18, 19, 20 state championship run. And then 21, it was a bit of a down year for us as far as just having dudes went. 22, it was kind of see what you got, and 23, it was we were returning a lot of guys. We knew we were going to be just duded up everywhere, and that's just kind of how she goes sometimes, right?
Yeah, and I mean I get that part of it, but I was happy with the attendance last year.
So I guess kind of on that note, the last thing we really got to touch on, attendance. I saw you hop on the BlackSwarm thing and make a little Facebook group for people heading out to Oregon to watch the game. You and I are fortunate enough to be heading out there on a work trip, so we will be able to catch it live in person. So you want to talk about that at all, or are you going to try and pull what you did for the state championship game and start crowdfunding people's plane tickets out there?
No, I've been hoping to find some people that are going out there and try to coordinate a little bit. Because I know that there are people going out there. It's obviously not many, but there are some fans going out. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten any feedback from anyone that they're going.
Yeah.
Now, I know a few people who are going. I haven't talked to them, but I know that there are some people going. I know that the Booster Club mentioned that everyone that's going should work together and discuss what's going on. But the Booster Club hasn't posted anything trying to help anyone coordinate. I thought by adding the Booster Club into that group that they would help promote it, but they didn't. So, it's kind of a shame that they can't help, boost their socials a little bit for fans to collaborate with one another, but it is what it is, I guess.
I did see in one of the Facebook groups, it wasn't a Booster Club post or anything, but it just one of like the Massillon Tiger pages, that somebody did make a post talking about, okay, where are we going, what are we doing out there type deal. And the comments just seemed kind of a hodgepodge of people saying shit and not much planning going on. But I know just from that, there has been attempts by people to figure something out. So maybe, make another post or get vocal about it. Obviously,
if only there was a group of people that were heading an organization designed to help Massillon fans and the Massillon football team that has a wide reach amongst other Massillon fans that could help coordinate these type of things. I don't know. This actually ties back. I'm actually mad that you brought this up now.
Oh boy.
The state championship game, because BlackSwarm, we helped get like 40 tickets.
Okay. I do want to stop you. There was no we. That was all you, brother. Like, I was letting you cook with that, and I just again want to give you your flowers for that.
Okay. Well, via the BlackSwarm podcast socials, I was able to coordinate like 40 some tickets for fans that normally would not have been able to go on their own, but we were able to get donations and we were able to find extra tickets and coordinate rides, because everybody kept asking if there was going to be buses. At Booster Club, are there going to be buses? At Massillon City Schools, are there going to be buses? At SARDA, are there going to be buses? No one replied saying yes or no. And then it's like, but we were able to crowdsource. We got some tickets. We were able to find some rides for people. We got like 40 extra people to go to the game. I tried getting the Booster Club involved. They liked one of the posts, but then never shared any of it, never helped. So I'm kind of upset just with their social media presence. And it's nothing that we haven't said directly to their face, so they can't be mad about it. But, they specifically said that they want people going to the game to collaborate with each other. Okay, well then create a post so people can do that. But they just stay silent. They put up one post a month, and it's, oh, here's our newest inductee from the Wall of Fame, which is great. You know, we need to recognize those things, but you're not going to see another post for another month after that. I wish you wouldn't have brought this up, but if you're going to Oregon, and you want to collaborate with other Massillon fans, there's a group for it on Facebook, or you can reach out to us directly, and we'll try to coordinate with you. Unfortunately, there are absolutely zero platforms online in which fans can coordinate this together. There was no hotel group rate. There was no anything. Unfortunately, you just have to go to the game and figure it out yourself.
I did not mean to open up that can of worms, nor did I think I said anything that would lead to that. But man, do I love getting you hot about anything, because you just go.
Sorry.
Don't be sorry. It's always fun for me.
It ends up not being fun for me, though. I get in trouble for this.
Listen, I'm not holding a gun to your head or making you say anything. It just...
I know. I'm doing it on my own, but I shouldn't be.
Something about reaping what you sow or sleeping in the bed you made. You know.
Yep.
It'd be like that. But, I mean, I guess I'll jump in that trench with you. Nothing you said's wrong. It's kind of a shame, but it is what it is. So that's another thing we're trying to do. You know, hop on. I don't know if you can see the group you made just going to our Facebook page, but hop on BlackSwarm podcast on Facebook. Look on there. Do some digging around. You know, you made the page if you want to hop on our page now, or you made the group if you want to hop on the page now and send it out again, try and get that back on. Obviously, the 15 people that still listen to this shit might be able to hop on there and check it out themselves. If anybody else is going, like Rob said, you know, post on there, get in contact with us. We'll try and get something. We'll be out there. You know, we want to see all the orange and black, everybody out there representing. I need to figure out how to get tickets in the first place, because I never actually filled out the thing.
There's there are no tickets. It's free admission. I think they only wanted you to fill that out so they had an idea of how many people were coming, because they have to bring in bleachers, because we're just playing on a field that normally doesn't have bleachers.
Got it.
So they're bringing in bleachers, and I think that's why they wanted to know how many people were coming. I'm guessing one extra person isn't going to change anything.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to make or break the seating situation there.
Yeah, I mean, standing room's fine.
Yeah, I'll make it work. But, yeah, so, you know, get in contact, hit up all your friends, family, whoever you know that's going out there, you know, get a group chat going. We'll figure something out. We can hopefully go out there and celebrate the big win on a national stage. And with that, Rob, I don't have anything else. You got anything?
No, I think I'm good.
All right, brother. Well, we'll catch you out in Oregon. And with that, go Tigers. Beat the Academy.
Go Tigers.
It's been a while since I could hold my head up high, and it's been a while since I first saw you, and it's been a while since I can stand on my own 2 feet again, and it's been a while since I could call you. Everything I can remember, as fucked up as it all may seem, the consequences that are rendered, I stretched myself beyond my means. It's been a while and say I love myself as well. And it's been a while since I've gone and fucked things up just like I always do. And it's been a while, but all that shit seems to disappear when I'm with you. And everything I can't remember, it's fucked up as it all may seem. The consequences that I've rendered, I'm gonna fuck things up again, Why must I feel this way? Just make this go away. Just one more peaceful day. It's been a while since I could look at myself straight. And it's been a while since I said I'm sorry. And it's been a while since I've seen the way the candles light your face. And it's been a while, but I can still remember just the way you taste. And everything I can't remember, it's fucked up as it all may seem to be. I know it's me. I cannot blame this on my father. He did the best he could for me. It's been a while since I could hold my head up high. And it's been a while since I said I'm sorry.